What hides Lake Baikal? Perhaps the greatest secret of the Cold War. In the dark depths of the water, amidst the icy desert, lies more than just the wreckage of a Soviet bomber. Today, we will prove that the hearts of the agents it carried still beat in these bottomless depths. Stay with us. This will be a shocking investigation. This plane, the Soviet Tu-16, didn't just crash. It became part of one of the most mysterious chapters of the Cold War. But its fall into Lake Baikal was no accident. It was part of the largest KGB operations. The Ghost of Stalingrad, as it was called in internal documents, disappeared beneath the ice. Was this just an accident? Today we will uncover all the secrets of this tragedy. Soon you'll learn what stood behind this mysterious catastrophe. We will reveal three key elements: the historical context of the operation, the mission that led to the tragedy, and the investigation that is still ongoing. Each of these elements unveils new, shocking facts that could change your perception of the events of that time. You will definitely be surprised by this truth. Prepare yourselves. The development of the Tu-16 in the Soviet Union began amid rising tensions of the Cold War. The Soviet Tu-16 bomber, equipped with powerful engines and capable of carrying a huge payload, was designed for strategic tasks. The primary purpose of this aircraft was to strike at critical military and economic targets at great distances. The Tu-16 became the primary combat unit for long-range bombing operations, capable of delivering nuclear or conventional weapons over distances exceeding 2,000 kilometers. This allowed for important missions far beyond Soviet borders. The Tu-16 was also designed for reconnaissance missions and the delivery of special cargo, such as strategic documents, technical devices, and even other important elements that could change the course of the war. The aircraft had high maneuverability and was equipped with special electronic warfare equipment, enabling it to operate in difficult conditions. A key point in the investigation of this operation is the PS-09 order, which controlled the secrecy of the mission. According to this order, the aircraft was to transport special cargo in sealed capsules. The order clearly stated that the cargo was to be marked as Class D2, indicating its increased danger and importance for national security. This class typically contains high-tech components or even parts for weapon manufacturing. These could be used for studying new technologies or military developments. Under this category, not only technical devices but also sensitive objects of strategic value could be hidden. This stage of history, and especially the demise of the Tu-16, could not pass without the attention of Soviet media. On one June day in 1963, the newspaper Pravda published a brief but significant message: "Zero fatalities." This dry and concise phrase, marked as an official statement, surprised many observers. How could this be? A plane with a strategic cargo, potentially of high importance, crashes. But the official version provides no details that could help clarify the misunderstanding. This was classic Soviet propaganda. Reports presented to the masses were meant to create a sense of control and stability in the country, despite the worst disasters during secret missions. Then begins the investigation into this incredible tragedy, and we move to the most important part: the mission that became a catastrophe. The preparation for the flight was concealed behind a large number of special operations. The Tu-16 was to transport BMX cargo, containing 3 sealed capsules with very important and strategic materials. Each capsule was carefully packed and labeled BMX, indicating its high level of secrecy. Moving such cargo freely within Soviet borders was practically impossible. The security system surrounding this cargo was composed of numerous precautions and special codes. Additionally, the operation had assigned KGB agents who accompanied the plane at every stage of its route. However, due to a sudden storm on the Tu-16's path, serious communication issues arose, and due to the lack of radio contact, the plane found itself in uncertain conditions. The storm that covered the area caused the signal to disappear, and the cloud height in the area reached 850 meters. a critical threshold beyond which the radar could no longer track the aircraft. This made further control of its movement impossible. The radar had only a few seconds left before the signal disappeared completely. The plane no longer appeared on the screens, marking the beginning of a great catastrophe that remained unclear for a long time. The disappearance from radar was not the end of this tragedy. The first visual witnesses, who were on the shores of Lake Baikal, became the last people to see the Tu-16 before it crashed. But even they could not understand what happened, as the plane fell into the most remote part of the lake, where its wreckage remained beneath the ice. All attempts to locate the plane and determine the exact crash site were in vain, and only many years later did the real search begin to find the critical elements of this catastrophic incident. The sudden change in weather played a key role in the plane's disappearance from radar and its failure to reappear in the airspace. During this operation, a serious problem arose for the Tu-16 crew as the cloud height and worsening weather conditions limited their ability to maneuver and maintain communication. This was the moment when Soviet military systems proved powerless against natural disasters, which ultimately determined the operation's outcome. The plane's disappearance from radar caused panic among the leadership, but official sources immediately decided that this incident should not be made public, as it could compromise the status and reputation of the USSR. However, the first visual witnesses, located on the shores of Lake Baikal, became the last people to see the Tu-16 before its crash. They saw the Tu-16 rapidly descending, then disappearing behind the horizon, leaving only mist and waves behind. These observations were not officially recorded, but they became the basis for numerous theories about what happened to the plane. The first reports of the plane's disappearance came only hours later, when messages were received from local fishermen and tourists who were on the shore of Lake Baikal. They claimed to have seen the plane moving at low speed, then disappearing among the clouds. The altitude at which the plane disappeared only suggested that it might have collided with something, either weather conditions or some other unforeseen obstacle. The disappearance of the plane, later known in Soviet archives as the Ghost of Stalingrad, became one of the most discussed topics among military personnel and historians of the time. However, this topic remained classified for many years, and only after several decades was it possible to disclose part of the archival documents. Officially, no one confirmed the Tu-16 plane's crash, and all details about its mission remained classified. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, numerous reports that came over the years confirmed that the plane did indeed disappear into the waters of Lake Baikal. Other witnesses claimed to have heard a powerful explosion, after which the plane stopped transmitting signals, and a large number of wreckage was noticed at the crash site. These reports left many unanswered questions, which still do not have definitive answers. After the Tu-16's disappearance in Lake Baikal, search operations began almost immediately, but information about the true scale of the tragedy remained highly classified. Forming the search group became an important stage in the investigation, but even here, everything was kept from the public eye. The search involved KGB and Soviet Navy personnel, as well as highly qualified experts in aviation and underwater searches. The orders regulating these actions were classified, and only a few high-ranking officials had access to all the details of this operation. Special KGB agents worked under the top-secret classification, and the operational headquarters was tasked with maximum speed and efficiency in the search operations. The search group began its work immediately after the first signal about the plane's disappearance was recorded. The search was carried out on special vessels equipped with the most modern underwater search equipment. However, the crash site was so difficult to access that the operation quickly encountered problems. Lake Baikal is known for its depth and unique conditions at the bottom, which complicated the task. The first search groups descended beneath the ice, discovering the wreckage of the plane at great depth. The found parts of the fuselage indicated that the plane had been broken into numerous small pieces, leaving no possibility for further recovery attempts. The first discovered wreckage site was at a depth of about 60 meters, which only increased the complexity of the task. The diving operation under the ice in Baikal was carried out under great pressure, as the investigation was too important for the Soviet military. The search group members worked in extreme cold and at a water depth where the temperature was around 4 degrees. At this stage of the operation, several large fragments were found, including parts of the wing and fuselage. Some parts of the plane were surprisingly well preserved, even despite the depth and icy water. However, one of the most horrifying discoveries occurred when the first signs of bodies were found, leaving no doubt that aboard the plane were not just crew members, but also valuable Soviet agents who needed to be concealed. A shocking fact that became known later was that the temperature of the bodies in the capsules and on the plane's wreckage was around 4 degrees C, meaning the organisms were in freezing conditions. Even more strangely, there were no signs of blood clotting on the bodies, suggesting that death occurred after the fall, and possibly these individuals died due to the extremely low temperatures during the descent. This discovery became one of the greatest mysteries of this tragedy. The water temperature in Lake Baikal is extremely low even in summer, so the bodies could have been preserved, making the search operation even more puzzling. What happened to the bodies in the capsules? Why were there no signs of blood clotting? These questions remained unanswered, as even after many examinations, no clear explanations were found. One of the biggest questions was that the capsules containing the bodies looked like hermetically sealed compartments with no signs that they contained human remains. This added a new level of mystery to the incident. But even more shocking was the discovery of the capsules themselves, which became one of the key artifacts of this tragedy. Each capsule was absolutely hermetic and sealed with a special mechanism, protecting the contents from the effects of water and frost. When the capsules were opened, it was discovered that one of them was equipped with a special lens, marked number 8U. This lens was used for documenting situations of critical importance to the USSR, and it contained special recordings. These recordings were likely vital to uncovering the true causes of the disaster, but they were suppressed due to the operational importance of keeping this information secret. The number 8U lens was sealed with black varnish, aimed at preventing access to the information inside. This fact became further proof that the secrecy of the operation was of utmost importance to the USSR. The handlers who took part in opening the capsules were surprised at how difficult it was to process these materials. The use of black varnish on the lens could mean that surveillance of the mission data was highly controlled and under strict supervision, and any attempt to access the information was doomed to failure. This discovery confirmed that the operation was highly classified and likely tied to crucial Soviet military developments. KGB archives, which were only opened decades after the event, contain vital information about the Tu-16 flight, which was tasked with a secret mission over Lake Baikal. Case number UD-451 became the primary document for investigating the plane crash. Official KGB records stated that the cargo was extremely important and that its delivery was part of a covert operation. At the time of the plane's crash, no concrete evidence had been found, and many records remained classified. KGB documents indicated that the cargo was transported in 3 hermetically sealed capsules marked as BMX, and the operation was conducted with utmost secrecy, with only a minimal circle of people knowing its contents. Protocol number PS-09 confirmed that the mission was part of strategic operations aimed at preserving Soviet security during the Cold War. These archival records became the basis for further analysis. They reflected not only the technical aspects of the mission, but also showed how meticulously the Soviet government concealed all the details of the operation. Case number UD-451 revealed a series of unclear and often contradictory data, which only added to the mystery of the crash. During the investigation, numerous experts were involved, including Professor Volkova, a specialist in ritual symbolism. She conducted a deep analysis of the symbolism that might have been embedded in the KGB's actions at various stages of the operation. According to her, many secret Soviet missions used certain symbolic elements that held important meaning for maintaining security codes and conveying especially important messages. Volkova noted that the symbol knife in the heart symbolized loyalty and deep commitment to the cause, which might relate to the deadly mission carried out by agents involved in this operation. Another important witness was Dmitry Shin, an aviation engineer archivist who worked with technical documents of this operation. He emphasized that there was no order for execution or physical acts of violence against the crew members or agents accompanying the cargo. According to him, the Tu-16 crash could have been the result of external factors, including adverse weather conditions that caused a drop in altitude and failure of navigation systems. He also noted that the absence of an order for physical destruction could indicate a mistake or an unforeseen situation that got out of control. But even after these testimonies, the investigation reached no definitive conclusions. The comparison of technical findings with the agent stories circulating among witnesses and military personnel only deepened the confusion. Among the military, rumors circulated that the plane was carrying not just technical equipment, but certain elements tied to an operation that could change the course of the Cold War. The tales of special agents allegedly being transported aboard were fueled by unrealistic rumors that there could have been live witnesses aboard who were supposed to be left alive. Comparing these tales with real technical conclusions led to disappointment for many. It turned out that much of the circulating versions were actually mere fabrications, aimed at sparking the public's imagination and suggesting that the investigation could be manipulated by political interests. However, the questions that remained after all the official investigations were far from resolved. They remained buried beneath the ice of Lake Baikal. What remained under the icy water became the primary symbol of this mystery. Beneath the water was still much that the investigation had not accessed. Not only the wreckage of the plane, but also some documents that pointed to deeper secrets of Soviet operations. Another important part of the investigation was a new coded zone known as Sector L, a zone under strict surveillance, with access limited even to high-ranking officials. This designation became not just a code, but a symbol of secrecy, the unknown, and the mysterious. The discovery of this code would have been another step toward unveiling the great secret, but more time and effort were needed to make all these documents and facts accessible to the public. That's why most of the evidence remained beneath the ice, despite numerous efforts to uncover it. The retrieval of the forbidden letter by Shevtsov became a turning point in the entire investigation. The letter, which had been classified as top secret for decades, contained a mention that caused many to re-examine the entire incident. It stated that hearts are buried at a depth of 70 meters. These words became a shocking confirmation that the cargo transported by the Tu-16 was not just ordinary agents or materials, but something much more important and far more mysterious. Shevtsov, one of the operation's leaders, used this letter to reinforce the secrecy and importance of the mission. An important detail was that the hearts were not physical bodies. This was a metaphor symbolizing extreme loyalty and dedication to the Soviet Union, but it left the question of the true meaning of this expression unanswered. Did important elements with political significance really lie beneath the water? This question remained open. Meanwhile, behind the scenes of the investigation, several KGB archive employees began preparing for the publication of case number UD-451, which was supposed to shed light on all aspects of this incident. All documents related to the plane's crash were finally approaching the moment of publication. But the constant threat that revealing this fact could provoke a massive political scandal made the higher authorities act cautiously. Due to the lack of confirmed testimonies and factual evidence, the full disclosure of this case was still not possible. Unexpectedly, just in the final hours before publication, which could have revealed all the details about the crash, the documents were once again classified. The state security leadership did everything possible to delay the publication at the last moment, using every opportunity to prevent this story from reaching the public. This was not just a battle for secrecy, but for political stability. If the publication had been completed, it could have caused not only international consequences, but also domestic political upheavals. Thus, the race against time began. Anyone who tried to speak the truth faced heavy pressure. The last attempts by journalists, archivists, and military experts to bring this case to the surface became fruitless. It remained only to watch as everything moved toward hiding this story for decades to come. International organizations were already ready to reveal all the details, but obstacles prevented them from doing so. The investigation was frozen, while the discovered records and data remained in secret archives. One of the most intriguing moments was the discovery of the exact time of the plane's fall, which, as later investigations revealed, could be precisely determined using radar data. Unfortunately for everyone involved in this case, it became known that the exact time of the catastrophe was recorded on the radar. The needle froze at 21:14. This time became the key moment, symbolizing the last minutes of the plane as it lost control and disappeared from radar screens. The entire crash process could only be clearly reconstructed based on data that recorded this moment. It was the line that could not be crossed. At 21:14, at the peak of its secret mission, the Tu-16, with all its agents and cargo, fell into the depths of Lake Baikal. Now, this number became a symbol of everything hidden beneath the water. The established time of the catastrophe, 21:14, became a metaphor for the final moment when the Soviet state was still trying to control the situation and could not fully open the veil of secrets surrounding this disaster. All the efforts of governments and special services trying to conceal information were now powerless in the face of the absolute truth that emerged after more than a decade of attempts to suppress it. Remaining on the surface of the water, symbolically fixed in time, these last moments became the foundation for future generations of investigators, as they became the starting point for uncovering the secrets that would eventually lead to the truth being revealed. The finale of this story simultaneously marked the beginning of a new phase in the truth about the mysterious catastrophe. The retrieval of Shevtsov's forbidden letter, which had been classified as top secret for decades, became the signal that forced investigators, experts, and the public to reconsider the entire situation. In this letter, at first glance, insignificant words, "Hearts are buried at a depth of 70 meters," became shocking confirmation that the cargo of the plane transported by the Tu-16 was not limited to simple agents or materials. This was a cargo whose significance could have political consequences for the entire USSR. Shevtsov deliberately used these phrases to emphasize the importance and secrecy of the operation, which raised many questions that remained unanswered. One crucial mystery remained. Did the cargo on the Tu-16 truly contain elements that could change the course of political events on the international stage? Although some traces suggested this, definitive evidence was never found. This question remained on the surface, giving rise to new theories and speculations. Alongside the retrieval of the forbidden letter, the internal forces investigating the case began preparations for the publication of case number UD-451. Documents related to the Tu-16 crash were almost at the point of publication, but at the last moment, they were blocked for political reasons. With a large portion of the facts at hand, these documents were meant to shed light on all aspects of the incident, but due to numerous political and military risks, their publication was delayed. In the final hours before publication, it became clear that it was not only about preserving secrecy, but also about maintaining political stability. If the truth about the catastrophe had been made public, it could have caused a massive scandal not only within the USSR, but also on the international level. High state authorities did everything possible to prevent the publication of information about the incident, even resorting to the harshest methods of control. While international organizations were already prepared for publication, the dissemination of the facts was impossible due to continuous obstacles from Soviet authorities. The search for an answer to this question dragged on for years, and although many archivists and journalists tried to shed light on what had happened, they faced insurmountable obstacles. Against the backdrop of this entire struggle with time and the power of the state, the defining moment became the discovery of the exact time of the crash, recorded by radar. The date of the plane's fall was 2114, a moment that became a metaphor for the point when Soviet authorities lost control and could no longer hide the truth. The frozen needle at 2114 became an important symbol not only of the moment of the catastrophe, but also of the boundary beyond which the truth could no longer be hidden. The entire political struggle leading up to this moment proved powerless in the face of the inevitable revelation of secrets. For many, this became a symbol of how the Soviet system tried to maintain control, but could not resist the inevitable truth. For investigators, journalists, and archivists, whose work had repeatedly encountered obstacles, this time became a trigger for further bringing to the surface facts that would shed light on the mysterious catastrophe. And although the case was never fully uncovered, this exact time, which became the foundation for future investigations, became the cornerstone for revealing much of the truth in the future. And this number, 2114, will forever remain in history as a symbol of the fight against a system that tried to freeze the truth until all the important details were revealed. This moment is the starting point from which new research will begin, and ultimately, the truth will be known.